My daughter chose the man who ruined our family to walk her down the aisle, while I paid for the entire wedding. I didn't cry when my wife left me. I didn't even cry when I found out she'd been cheating on me for almost a year with a man who used to come to our backyard barbecues. But I did cry, uncontrollably, when I realized my daughter had chosen him to take my place. My name's Daniel. I'm 52, and if you asked anyone who's known me more than a decade, they'd probably tell you I'm a provider. I work hard, stay loyal, keep my promises. Even when it breaks me. I never expected a reward for that. But I never expected betrayal either, not like this. My daughter, Emily, she's 25 now. She was 6 years old the night her mother walked out the front door and never looked back. Left nothing but a note on the kitchen table and a box of half-packed clothes. And a man named Rick waiting in the car outside. I still remember the look on Emily's face when she realized Mom wasn't coming back. That blank stare, lips trembling, like she couldn't understand what she'd done wrong. Like love had an expiration date, and she'd missed the fine print. For 4 years, it was just the two of us. Scraping by, holding things together with duct tape and midnight peanut butter sandwiches. I'd tuck her in at night, pretending I wasn't worried sick about the bills, the school lunches, the future. She never knew how close we came to losing everything. Then I met Laura. She was different. Kind. Patient. The first woman who didn't flinch when I talked about being a single dad. The first person who saw me as more than just the guy picking up the pieces. Laura became Emily's stepmom when Emily was 10. Not once did she try to replace her mom. She was there to support, not to control. And she did that, beautifully. But Emily never really let her in. She kept her at arm's length, like she was waiting for her real mom to come back and finish the story. Only, that never happened. Instead, 19 years later, Emily told me she was engaged. To a guy named Matt. And I was happy for her. Not just smile and nod happy. Genuinely happy. She seemed grounded for the first time in years. Like maybe she'd finally found something good. They didn't have much money. Emily had just landed her first real job. Matt was freelancing. They could barely cover rent, let alone a wedding. So I did what dads are supposed to do. I offered to pay. Not just chip in, pay. The whole thing. Venue, catering, flowers, music, the works. 50 grand, give or take. Laura was hesitant. You sure she wants that kind of help? She asked. I nodded. She deserves a day that's actually about her. And at first, it felt like we were finally getting closer again. She sent me photos of the venue, asked my opinion on cake flavors, even let me see the draft of her vows. It felt like progress, until the cracks started to show. It was Laura's cousin who tipped us off, casually mentioning she ran into one of Emily's friends. They'd said something about cutting out toxic family to protect her mental health. I brushed it off, figured it was just a miscommunication. But something in Laura's face told me it wasn't. I decided to check in with the wedding planner, just to make sure the family had all the details. I asked if my brother Dave was on the guest list. The planner hesitated. I'm not sure. The guest list was finalized by the bride. That didn't sit right. I pushed harder, eventually demanded the list. And when it arrived, my stomach dropped. My name wasn't there. Neither was Laura's. But you know whose name was? Rick. Father of the bride, Rick. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loud. Not violent. Just snapped. Quietly. Like the sound of a rope finally giving out after years of holding too much weight. The same man who helped tear our family apart. The man who told me, to my face, she's your problem now, was now walking my daughter down the aisle I paid for. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All I could do was stare at that email like it was written in another language. I tried calling Emily. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. And again. Nothing. Then I checked her social media and found photos from her bachelorette weekend. Laughing. Drinking. Radiant. Not a care in the world. Like I didn't exist. Like I was never part of the story. And that's when the door opened behind me. Laura standing there, phone in hand, face pale. They just emailed the final invoice, she said softly. Catering, florals, over 20 grand. She looked at me. Are you still going to pay it? I looked at her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer. But deep down I knew. Something was coming. And it wasn't going to be pretty. I stared at that invoice like it was a betrayal written in dollar signs. $23,680. Catering, floral design, rentals, a harpist for cocktail hour. Every last dime tied to a wedding I wasn't even invited to. Laura sat across from me at the kitchen table, holding her coffee like it was the only thing keeping her from breaking down. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. We were both watching the same fire burn down everything we'd tried to build. "You're still going to pay it, aren't you?" she asked, her voice thin, like paper. And for a second, I hated myself for not answering. Because I didn't know. Because some part of me still wanted to be the father Emily needed, even if she clearly didn't want me. But I wasn't stupid. Not anymore. The moment Rick's name showed up under father of the bride, I saw it all clearly. She'd been rewriting our story for months. And I'd just been too blind, too desperate, too hopeful to see it. So I did what I hadn't done in years. I drove to her apartment. No call, no warning. I just got in my truck, hands shaking on the wheel, and went. I rehearsed the speech 100 times on the way. How could you do this to me? Why him? What did I do that was so unforgivable? But when she answered the intercom and said, "Dad, I'm busy," everything I'd planned evaporated. She wouldn't even buzz me in. Not after everything. Not after all of it. I pressed the button again. And again. Finally, I heard the click. The front door unlocked. Not because she let me in. Because I started buzzing every apartment in the building until someone finally caved. Pathetic, maybe. But I didn't care. I needed answers. I needed her to look me in the eye. When she opened the door, Matt was behind her. Arms crossed, jaw clenched, like he was bracing for a fight. And Emily, she didn't look shocked to see me. She looked annoyed. Like I'd interrupted her Netflix night. "What do you want?" she said flatly. No hug. No smile. Just ice. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the living room. Wedding samples. Magazines. A vision board taped to the wall. All paid for by me. I kept my voice calm. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Tell you what? That Rick was walking you down the aisle." She blinked, smirked, and said the one line that cracked something inside my chest. "At least he didn't replace Mom." I felt my pulse spike. My breath caught in my throat. She said it like it was a punchline. Like the man who abandoned her. Who vanished from her life for 2 decades. Deserved the seat she denied me. "I remarried 4 years after she left," I said, trying not to raise my voice. "After raising you alone. After holding this family together." She shrugged. "Well, now you don't have to travel. Saves you the trouble." My jaw clenched. I turned to Matt. "You knew about this?" He nodded. "She told me everything," he said, like it was some kind of confession. "She said you used to yell. That you were controlling. That you threatened her when she was a kid." It felt like I'd been slapped. I looked back at Emily. "She told you that?" Matt didn't blink. "She said you scared her. That you made her feel like a prisoner in her own home." I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. All those years. All those birthdays. All the nights I sat in the ER waiting room. And this was the version of me she chose to believe? "You don't even know the half of it," she said, arms folded. I had to set boundaries. "You always make everything about you. About Laura." My voice finally came back, but it cracked. "You think I paid for this wedding for me?" She rolled her eyes. "I think you paid because you felt guilty." I stared at her. Guilty? Guilty for being the one who stayed? For being the one who sacrificed everything? I looked around again. At the decorations. The wine glasses on the table. The $4,000 designer invitations sitting in a gold-trimmed box. All of it mine. Every last detail funded by the man who didn't even get a chair at the reception. Then she said it. The line I'll never forget. "You're just the checkbook." My ears rang. Everything went silent. I turned to Matt, barely able to keep my voice steady. "Good luck, man," I said quietly. "You're gonna need it." And I walked out. 15 minutes. That's how long I lasted. But it felt like a funeral. I didn't even make it to my car. I sat down on the curb outside her building and stared at the ground. And for the first time in decades, I cried. Not for me. Not even for Emily. But for all the moments I thought we were okay. All the years I thought love would be enough. When I finally got home, Laura didn't say a word. She just wrapped her arms around me and let me fall apart. And when I looked up at her, I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I opened my laptop, pulled up the wedding spreadsheet, logged into my bank account, and started canceling every single payment I could. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I was done. Done being the invisible father. Done being the open wallet. Done being a background character in a story I helped write. And I was just getting started. I always thought heartbreak would feel loud. Like a door slamming. A glass shattering. A scream in the middle of the night. But it doesn't. Real heartbreak is quiet. It's sitting alone in your kitchen at 6 a.m., staring at a half-paid invoice for a wedding you're not invited to, while the coffee goes cold in your hand. It's the sound of silence after you realize your daughter doesn't see you as a person anymore, just a transaction. I spent 20 years showing up, and she replaced me with a ghost. But not just any ghost. Rick, the man who vanished the moment fatherhood got inconvenient. The same guy who told me, "She's better off with you," while loading her mother's suitcase into the back of a rental car. And now, he's the one walking her down the aisle? On my dime? No, not anymore. That morning, I went down the list like a surgeon. Venue, canceled. Deposit non-refundable, but I didn't care. They were not getting another dollar out of me. Caterer, gone. I explained the situation, kept it civil, told them to expect a reversal on the final payment. The woman on the phone sounded shocked, but not surprised. Then came the florist, the band, the rental company. Each one more awkward than the last. Each one realizing, slowly, that the man who paid the bills wasn't even going to be there. One even said, "I thought you were the father of the bride?" I paused and said, "Apparently not." By the end of the day, I had clawed back just over 20 grand. Not everything, but enough. Enough to make a statement. Enough to feel like I had taken something back. And I still hadn't said a word to Emily. No angry texts. No revenge post. Just silence. But silence has a funny way of echoing. It took less than 48 hours. That Friday, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. Then another. And another. Finally, I picked up and heard chaos. "Dad, what the hell did you do?" Emily's voice was shrill, panicked. "They're saying the venue's canceled. The florist pulled out." "What did you do?" I stayed calm. "I canceled the things I paid for. You can't just." I cut her off. "I can." And I did. She fell silent. Then came the guilt trip. "You're ruining everything. I have guests flying in. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I almost laughed. "Humiliating? Funny," I said. "That's exactly how I felt when I read that guest list." Silence again. Then, the deflection. "This isn't about you, Dad. You're being petty. Childish." I stood up from the chair. "No," I said sharp. "You made it about me when you replaced me with a man who abandoned you. You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. You made your choice, Emily. And now I'm making mine." I ended the call. And that silence? It didn't feel hollow anymore. It felt like armor. But I knew that wouldn't be the end of it. Because people like Rick don't stay quiet for long. He called me next. Of course he did. His number popped up while I was in the garage, fixing a busted light on Laura's car. I let it ring. Twice. Then picked up. "Daniel," he said, smooth as ever. "We need to talk." I didn't say a word. "I understand you're upset. But pulling out now, it's vindictive. It's not fair to Emily." The nerve. The audacity of this man. I took a slow breath. "You really want to talk about fairness, Rick? Look. No, you look. You haven't earned the right to say her name. You walked away. For 20 years. You were a ghost while I was scraping together rent and packing school lunches. You don't get to parachute in and play Father of the Year because you showed up to a couple tastings and told her what she wanted to hear." His tone shifted. "You're being emotional." "No," I said calmly. "I'm being factual. And here's a fact. If you think I'm going to fund your little family reunion, you're dumber than I thought." That shut him up. And for a moment, I thought he might apologize. But instead, he said, "Emily deserves a father who supports her unconditionally." And that was it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just about Emily. Rick had wormed his way back in for a reason. Maybe pride. Maybe ego. Or maybe because seeing her call someone else Dad made him feel powerful. Even after all the damage he left behind. "I supported her for 25 years, I said quietly. "Now, she can see how far your unconditional love gets her." I hung up and let the line go dead. That night, Laura and I sat on the porch. Stars overhead. Crickets humming. A glass of bourbon in my hand. For the first time in weeks. I felt peace. Real peace. Not the fake kind you get from pretending everything's fine. The real kind. But it didn't last long. Because the next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We know what you did. And if you think this ends here, you're wrong." Attached was a screenshot of me canceling the vendor contracts. And underneath, a name. Rick W. He was going to try something. I could feel it. And the worst part? Emily might actually help him. The thing about being the quiet one, the one who always pays, always forgives, always keeps the peace, is that people forget what you're capable of when you stop playing nice. Rick's message didn't scare me. It insulted me. We know what you did. Like I hadn't been silently funding their little fantasy for months. Like I was the one hiding something. No, Rick. I didn't do anything. I just stopped doing everything. But I knew what that message meant. He was gearing up for war. And Emily was either too blind to see it, or worse, already helping him load the ammo. I didn't reply. Not to him. Not to her. Instead, I forwarded the message to my lawyer. A friend from college, Blake. Smart. Discreet. Brutal in court. 5 minutes later, he called. What exactly are we dealing with here, he asked. I gave him the whole rundown. The payments. The cancellations. The guest list. The voicemail from Rick. He let out a long whistle. Classic manipulation. But unless there was a formal contract or promise of payment, they've got nothing. They're saying I sabotaged the wedding, I said. And it was your money. You didn't break any laws. At most, they could try a civil case for emotional damages, but good luck with that. Let them walk into a courtroom and admit they uninvited the man who paid for the entire thing. He paused. Honestly, Daniel, this could get ugly. But if they push, we push harder. And that's when it hit me. I wasn't scared anymore. Because they'd overplayed their hand. They thought I'd fold. That I'd crawl back, apologize, pay the bills just to be included. They didn't expect silence. They didn't expect boundaries. And they sure as hell didn't expect me to fight. But they weren't done. Because 2 days later, the real bomb dropped. A post. On Facebook. From Emily. Family is about love, not control. It breaks my heart when people use money to manipulate others, especially during what should be the happiest time of your life. But I refuse to let bitterness ruin my wedding day. I'm grateful to have real support from those who actually care. And then a photo. Her. Rick. And the caption? Father and daughter. Reunited at last. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry. Just hollow. It was all out in the open now. The public framing. The narrative. The part where I get cast as the villain. The controlling, bitter man who couldn't handle being replaced. And I realized something. She wasn't just cutting me out. She was rewriting me entirely. But here's the thing about stories. The truth always leaks. Because not everyone was buying it. Aunt Melanie commented, "Didn't your dad pay for the wedding?" Another cousin added, "This doesn't sound like the uncle I know." And slowly, quietly, the cracks began to show. But the worst part? Wasn't the post. It was what came next. A certified letter. Delivered to my door. From a law office. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a formal request for reimbursement. They wanted damages. For the venue. For the caterer. For emotional distress. Signed by Rick. My jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. That was it. That was the moment it stopped being personal. This was war. I called Blake back. Game on, I said. And I wasn't bluffing. Because they thought I'd play defense. But they forgot something crucial. I didn't survive a decade of raising a broken family by playing soft. I knew where the bones were buried. I knew which skeletons they didn't want dragged out. And I was done protecting them. You want war? Fine. But don't start it with the man who built your world from scratch. Because I remember everything. Every phone call. Every receipt. Every bailout. And I never deleted the messages. Not out of spite. Out of habit. Out of love. Out of the pathetic hope that one day she'd look back and realize I was there. Always. So when that legal letter hit my doorstep, demanding I pay them, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop and started pulling files. Emails. Bank transfers. Screenshots. Voicemails. I created a folder titled Everything I Did for Her, and it was massive. $6,200 to cover her tuition after she dropped her scholarship. $3,400 for her first car after Rick ghosted her at the dealership. $850 to clear her credit card debt when she overspent on designer shoes and blamed it on emotional burnout. Photos of birthday cakes I made myself. A dozen screenshots of her texting me. Can you help? Please don't tell Matt I'm behind on rent. You're the only one I can count on. I printed it all. Then I called Blake. If they want to dance in court, I said, I'm bringing the whole damn orchestra. And he didn't blink. Because here's the truth. If you're going to smear the man who raised you, make sure he doesn't have evidence of everything you forgot. But I didn't stop there. I wrote my own letter. Not to the court. To Emily. Handwritten. No lawyer jargon. Just truth. I told her everything she didn't want to hear. Not to beg, not to guilt trip, but because the next step wasn't legal. It was personal. I started making phone calls. Family, friends, old neighbors, her godmother. I told them what happened. Not with bitterness. Just facts. That I paid. That I was erased. That Rick was now dad again, just in time for the photos. And something unexpected happened. People listened. Not everyone, sure. Some stayed neutral, uncomfortable, muttering things like, "I'm sure it's a misunderstanding." But the ones who knew me, who saw me show up for 2 decades, they chose sides. My side. Aunt Denise offered to testify. Uncle Mark told me flat out, "You raised her. Rick didn't even send Christmas cards. This is a joke." And then came the wild card. Laura. Quiet, steady Laura. She'd been silent through the whole thing. But that night, she walked into my office holding a dusty old binder. "I've kept these," she said. It was a scrapbook. Not of memories. Of receipts. Proof of every dime she'd helped spend raising Emily. Clothes. School supplies. Summer camps. Therapy bills. 2 stints in rehab. Every item labeled, dated, stapled. "I didn't keep them to hold it over her," Laura whispered. "I kept them because I wanted her to see how much she was loved." I flipped through it. Page after page of silent sacrifice. And I broke down. Because this woman, the one Emily never called mom, had done more for her than the man she was now calling dad. I asked her, "Are you sure you want to go public with this?" She nodded. She made her choices. Now she can live with the truth. So we drafted a statement. Not a rant. Not revenge. Just the truth. We didn't post it yet. But we had it ready. And something told me we'd need it soon. Because the next day, while we were eating breakfast, the doorbell rang. Laura looked at me. I looked at her. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. It was Matt. Alone. Hands in his pockets. Eyes red. And when he finally spoke, his voice shook. "Can I come in?" Matt stood in the doorway like a man carrying a bomb he didn't know how to disarm. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside. He walked in slowly, like every inch of the floor might collapse beneath him. Didn't sit. Didn't ask to. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His eyes darted around the room, like maybe he thought Rick would be standing behind me. I broke the silence. "You here on his behalf?" He flinched. "No." Laura crossed her arms. Stayed behind me. He looked at her, and for the first time, I saw it. Guilt. Real, raw, shameful guilt. "I need to tell you something," he said. So I let him talk. He started slow. Careful. Hesitant. I didn't know the full story. I swear I didn't. I believed what Emily told me. About you. About Laura. About everything. I didn't respond. Let him twist in it. Then he said the thing I didn't expect. "She told me you used to scream at her. That you threatened to kick her out. That Laura tried to replace her mom. And when she pushed back, you punished her." He looked at me, eyes glassy. I believed her. Every word. Laura's face didn't change, but I felt her hand slide into mine. Matt kept going. "She started saying it right after Rick came back. She said you were manipulative. That you were trying to buy her loyalty. That you were using money to control her. And when you pulled out of the wedding, it confirmed everything. At least, that's what I thought." His voice cracked. But now, he pulled something from his jacket pocket. A folded piece of paper. "I found this." He handed it to me. It was a printout. An email. From Rick. To Emily. Subject line, "We control the narrative." The message was short, but brutal. "You need to keep the story straight. Play the victim. Say it was financial abuse. Emotional guilt. Paint Laura as the jealous stepmom. No one will question you. You're the bride. I'll handle Daniel if he pushes. Just keep Matt on your side until it's over." I stared at it, and my heart stopped. There it was. Proof. Cold. Unfiltered. Blatant manipulation. I handed it to Laura. She read it in silence. One slow breath at a time. Matt looked like he might throw up. I confronted her, he whispered. "Last night. Asked if it was real." He shook his head. She didn't deny it. Just said, "You don't understand what he did to me." And then she flipped it. Started crying. Said I was gaslighting her. That I was taking your side. His voice dropped. That's when I realized. I don't know who I'm marrying. Silence. Just that sentence hanging in the air. Like it belonged to someone else. "I'm not here to apologize," Matt said finally. "I don't think I deserve that yet." I nodded once. Fair. "But I am here to tell you. I canceled the legal claim. Rick doesn't know yet. but I pulled my name off the paperwork. I won't be part of it. Laura sat down slowly. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen it sooner. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I felt a sliver of something I didn't expect. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But clarity. What are you going to do? I asked. He looked at the floor. I don't know. And then he said something I'll never forget. She talks about him like he's this hero, this man who saved her from you. But the truth is, I've met Rick. And when I look in his eyes, I don't see a father. I see a man who enjoys being needed. He stood up. I'm sorry for believing her. And I'm sorry for what you've both been dragged through. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. If there's one thing I learned in all this, it's that you can't love someone out of their own lies. He left without another word. And Laura? She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. We sat in that silence for a long time. Then I reached for the folder, the one labeled Everything I Did for Her, and I slid it back into the drawer. Not because I was giving up, but because I didn't need to prove anything anymore. The truth? It was already unraveling. But we weren't done. Not even close. Because that night, Emily called. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I stared at her name on the screen. Emily. After everything, she was finally calling. Not texting. Not through Rick. Not through lawyers. Her. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to scream. But the part that answered was the part that used to tuck her into bed when she had nightmares. I picked up. Hello. Silence. Then her voice, soft, calculated. Hey, Dad. I said nothing. Just waited. She took a slow breath. I heard you talk to Matt. Yeah, I said. He stopped by. More silence. Then, he's confused. He doesn't understand what you did to me. What you always do. And there it was. The spin. Even now. Even after the email, the fallout, the cancellations. She was still trying to win the narrative. I didn't call to fight, she said. I just think we should talk. Like adults. So I let her. I let her talk. For almost 10 minutes, she laid it all out. Her version of it. How I held money over her head. How Laura made her feel unwelcome. How Rick gave her what she'd always needed. A real dad who listened. And finally, she said it. I just want a relationship that doesn't come with strings. And I said, then you shouldn't have taken the check. Silence. Absolute silence. I could hear her breathing, sharp and shallow, like she'd been slapped. You used me, I said, voice calm. Cold. Final. You let me fund your dream wedding. Let me think we were reconnecting. Then you handed the spotlight to the man who abandoned you and told the world I was the problem. She tried to interrupt. I didn't let her. I kept every message, Emily. Every dollar. Every voicemail where you said, I need you. I never once made you beg. I never asked for anything. Except honesty. My voice cracked. And you couldn't even give me that. She got quiet again. Then came the whisper. I didn't think you'd actually walk away. And there it was. The truth behind everything. The reason for the lies, the manipulation, the entitlement. She thought I'd always stay. Because I always had. But not anymore. I'm not coming to the wedding, I said. She started to cry. I never said I didn't love you, she whispered. And I believed her. But love without respect is just control in a prettier outfit. You don't get to rewrite history, I said softly. Not with me. Not anymore. She sniffed. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. I closed my eyes. You did, I said. For 25 years, you were everything. Even when you hated me. Even when you blamed me. I showed up. Another pause. Then she asked, barely audible. So what now? And I gave her the answer that finally set me free. Now? I let you go? She didn't hang up. But she didn't say anything else. We just sat there, tethered by silence. 2 people who used to be family, now standing on opposite sides of a burned bridge. Eventually, she whispered, goodbye, and ended the call. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I turned to Laura and said, it's over. But I was wrong. Because 2 days later, Rick went public. It started with a Facebook post. Of course it did. Rick never had the guts to face me directly, only to weaponize whispers and applause. It was long, too long, dressed in fake humility and veiled jabs. He opened with, I don't usually share private matters online, but as a father trying to support his daughter's wedding, I feel forced to speak. Father. That word again. Like he'd earned it. Like 20 years of silence could be wiped clean with one tuxedo fitting and a few flattering Instagram angles. He went on. It's heartbreaking to watch someone use money and power to manipulate a young bride on the most important day of her life. No one deserves to be emotionally blackmailed, especially not by someone who claims to love them. He never used my name, but everyone knew who he meant. And then the dagger. Forgiveness is a choice. One we offered, one that was rejected. But family should lift you up, not tear you down. I'm proud to walk my daughter down the aisle. Proud to be a father again. Over 100 likes in an hour. Comments pouring in. So beautifully said. You're a real man, Rick. Blood doesn't make a father, love does. And that's when it hit me. They didn't just erase me from the wedding. They were trying to erase me, period. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Laura saw the post before I could hide it. She didn't speak. She just reached for my hand. And in that moment, I had two choices. Fight fire with fire. Or walk away and let the fire burn itself out. We still had the folder, the emails, the invoices, the voice messages. Proof. I could post it all. Break the illusion. Make Rick eat his words in front of everyone. And I almost did. I really almost did. I opened Facebook, drafted a post, started typing. Since Rick wants to go public, let's talk about what a real father actually looks like. But then I stopped. Not because I was afraid, but because I saw something else. I saw the ending I needed, not the one they deserved. Because at the end of the day, Rick can wear the title. He can hold her arm down that aisle. He can pose for the cameras and smile like he saved the day. But he'll never have what I had. The scraped knees I bandaged. The math homework I stayed up till 2 a.m. helping with. The nights I sat outside her door while she cried over boys who didn't love her back. The secrets. The sacrifices. The sleepless years of being a real dad. He'll never touch that. So I deleted the post. And instead, I did something else. I booked a flight. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere green. Somewhere new. A week later, while they were scrambling to put together a wedding without a caterer or venue, I was sitting on a porch in a different state. Fresh coffee. New book. No noise. And I breathed. For the first time in years. I just breathed. The last I heard, they still went through with the wedding. She wore a dress I paid for. He walked her down a borrowed aisle. The cake melted in the sun. The band bailed last minute. Someone said Rick gave a speech so self-congratulatory it made people leave early. But I wasn't there. Because I didn't need to be. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the hero either. I was just done. I let go of the rope. And I didn't fall. I rose. And if she ever decides to look for me again, really look, she'll know where to find me. But I'm not waiting anymore. I'm living.